Today's lesson is body facts or fake news. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Helen.
And today we're going to talk about the human body, that thing in which we live that includes our head, our chest, our arms, our legs, our belly, all that fun stuff. And yes, indeed, we have some information about the body, and a lot of people understand the body in different ways, and there are, I guess, some myths about the body, some things about the body that we believe that aren't actually true.
That's right. And it's very strange when you think about it because our bodies are so close to us. We're living in it, or it's us or part of us. But most of us know very little about our bodies. And some of the things that we believe to be true are actually not true. And especially these days with the internet and YouTube and a lot of news sources with people providing information about health and the human body, it's really difficult sometimes to distinguish between truth and fake news and myths. So it's become even more important to try to figure out the difference because before we just didn't know. But now we have all of this information that we have to sift through, that we have to separate to find out what's true so that we don't harm ourselves by doing something silly.
Yep, we need to separate fact from fiction, so let's find out what some of these myths are in today's lesson. Let's listen now to the first introductory paragraph, and then we'll talk about it.
Body facts or fake news? The human body is a marvelous thing. The more you learn about it, the more fascinating it becomes. However, with this deeper knowledge also comes the realization of just how much body-related misinformation there is out there. Here are some commonly held facts about the human body that on closer inspection reveal themselves to be just plain false.
大家好，第一部分我们看到形容词 fascinating， 表示有趣的或是迷人的。举例来说 Alice watched a fascinating documentary on the birth of jazz. Alice 看了一部关于爵士乐诞生的纪录片，相当好看。或是 Justine read a fascinating article on indigenous tribes in the Amazon. Justine 读到一篇引人入胜的文章，内容关于亚马逊原住民部落。接着我们看到名词 misinformation， 表示错误资讯或是假消息。字首 miss 表示错误、不当或是相反、缺乏。例如 The newspaper didn't carry out proper fact-checking, and some of its stories contained misinformation. 那间报社未尽妥善的事实查证，其中一些报道包含了错误讯息。也可以说 misinformation is one of the methods of political persecution nowadays. 假讯息是现今政治迫害的其中一个手段。另外补充两个字首为 miss 的单字，第一个是动词 mislead， M-I-S-L-E-A-D mislead， 指误导或是使误信，像是 Many people were misled into thinking that the man was a famous actor. 许多人被误导以为那名男子是知名演员。或者 The stock analyst misled numerous investors with poor advice. 那位股票分析师以糟糕的建议来误导许多投资人。第二个是名词 misfortune， M-I-S-F-O-R-T-U-N-E misfortune， 表示不幸的事或是厄运。举例来说 Hank had the misfortune of losing his leg in a car accident. Hank 不幸在一场车祸中失去了他的腿。或是 Many of the ship's crew blamed their recent misfortunes on the captain's poor leadership. 船员中许多人把最近的厄运怪罪在船长领导无方。
So today's lesson is body facts or fake news. And the first sentence here says, The human body is a marvelous thing. The more you learn about it, the more fascinating it becomes. And indeed, it's true. The human body, although it may seem simple, look simple, it's a very complicated, complex process. And the more you learn about it, the more you find out about it, the more fascinating it becomes. Something that's fascinating is extremely interesting.
Exactly. It fascinates us. And of course, the more you learn about it, the more fascinating it becomes. There's that more pattern. So yes, the more you study about it, the more you read about it, the more interesting, the more fascinating, the more wonderful it becomes. However, with this deeper knowledge also comes the realization of just how much body-related misinformation there is out there. So, of course, if you have deeper knowledge about the body, then, of course, you realize there's a lot of misinformation out there that people keep passing around. Oh, you shouldn't do that because the body does this or it does that. And, of course, you start to realize that, hey, a lot of those things I learned as a kid are actually not true. So, yes, indeed, you have this realization. And that's from the verb to realize. That means you learn about something that you didn't know about before, but maybe you should have learned about it. So, hey, I realized that somebody was staring at me, so I moved to the other side of the room.
Right. So realization could simply be the process of understanding something. I could say, for instance, after having lived in the city for 20 years, I've come to the realization that I really need some peace and quiet. So I've decided to move to the countryside.
Or a friend of mine actually moved to Taidong and then came to the realization that, hey, maybe a small city is not my kind of place, and they moved back to Taipei, and they've been here ever since. Okay, so yes, indeed, you will have the realization that the body is something that we don't all know about, and you may have had some misinformation come your way. And, of course, that misinformation is out there, which means it's going around and people are talking about it, and it is accepted as true when it isn't. And here are some commonly held facts about the human body that on closer inspection reveal themselves to be just plain false. So here we've got the phrase commonly held. Held is from the verb to hold, which means it's a belief that people have. So if something's commonly held, it's commonly believed by people. And these are so-called facts about the human body, which are actually just plain false when you have closer inspection.
Right. When you have closer inspection, or in other words, when you examine these commonly held facts more closely, then these facts, and we have to do the air quote gesture because we're not really talking about facts as the word means, but facts as in what people believe to be true but aren't actually true. When we inspect these facts more closely, then they reveal themselves to be just plain false. So first of all, the word inspection is just the noun form of the verb to inspect. And inspection means the act of looking at something carefully to find out if it's true, if it's working properly. I could say, for instance, the police performed an inspection of the premises of the room to see if there were any evidence of the crime.
And a couple of years ago, I bought a scooter from a friend, but it did not pass inspection. They said the tires were too bald, so I had to go get them changed in order to have the scooter pass inspection. I think we all have our scooters inspected from time to time, or our cars. So indeed, on closer inspection, if you look at these facts, you will realize that they're not just false, but they're plain false. They're absolutely, totally false. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first paragraph. Now we're going to start talking specifically about what some of those things are. What is some of that fake news about the body? Here's the first one. You can catch up on sleep.
You can catch up on sleep. Have you ever stayed in bed until noon on the weekend to make up for your lack of sleep during the week? Unfortunately, our bodies just don't work that way. And in fact, too much sleep at once will actually make you feel more tired. What your body needs is a consistent 8 hours of sleep per night. So instead of binging on sleep once a week, adjust your schedule to ensure you get enough rest on a regular basis.
后第二部分我们看到单字 binge， 这个字是动词，指无节制的做点点点，后面常接 on 加名词，像是 Monica usually binges on chocolate when she is in a bad mood. Monica 在心情不好的时候会毫无节制的吃巧克力。也可以说 My roommate binged on video games all night long. 我的室友整个晚上毫无节制的打电动。
So the first piece of misinformation about our bodies or about health is you can catch up on sleep. To catch up on something means to do something that you didn't do before or you didn't do enough of before. So for instance, I could say over the weekend, I plan to catch up on some reading, which means I had planned to do some reading in the past and I really want to get some reading done. It doesn't have to be schoolwork or reading textbooks, but maybe novels I've wanted to read and I just haven't had time to do it. So this weekend I'm going to catch up on it, catch up on some reading to spend time reading these books. And here we're talking about catching up on sleep. And that happens to a lot of us when we're really busy. We have exams to study for, projects to finish for work. We promise ourselves, okay, we're not sleeping enough or as much as we want to now because we're too busy, but I'll catch up on sleep this weekend when the test is over or the project is finished, which means I'll just sleep more over the weekend so that I can make up for the time that I lost in sleeping.
Right, or if you've missed school because of illness or something, you need to catch up on the material. Maybe you need to have a classmate take notes for you and tell you what the assignments are and things like that. So you need to catch up on your homework. And here, of course, the myth is you can catch up on sleep. Okay, so here's the question. Have you ever stayed in bed until noon on the weekend to make up for your lack of sleep during the week? Yes, indeed, this is quite common. I ask people what they did over the weekend and they said, oh, I slept the whole time because I was so busy last week. So I just slept all day Saturday and I slept all day Sunday. First of all, I don't believe them. I don't think it's possible to actually sleep for 24 hours or 48 hours in a row. I just don't think that's possible. You need to wake up and eat and you need to do something eventually. But in any case, lots of people say this. Hey, I had a very hectic week, so I needed to catch up on my sleep or I needed to make up for my lack of sleep. So that's a similar phrase there, to make up for something. It's similar in meaning to catch up on something.
Right. So to make up for something can also mean to take the place of something. For instance, if you are in the habit of eating badly and not getting enough sleep and you just have very bad health habits, a little bit of exercise won't make up for that. You're going to need to do a lot more to get healthier. So to make up for something also means to do something in place of something else.
But it just means to compensate, okay? You lack something in one area and you try to compensate in another area. So yes, indeed, you try to make up for your lack of sleep during the week by sleeping late on the weekend. And unfortunately, our bodies just don't work that way. That's not the way it is with our bodies. And in fact, too much sleep at once will actually make you feel more tired. So indeed, if you get too much sleep, then you can actually cause some damage to your body because you'll start to feel more tired as a result. So yes, indeed, if you do feel like getting out of bed, do it, even though it's Saturday morning. And indeed, this does happen to me if I've had a very busy week and then I have a good night's sleep on Friday night and I wake up at about, 6, 7 in the morning on Saturday. I go ahead and get up because, hey, I don't want to force myself to sleep when my body doesn't really want it.
Right. And if you force yourself to sleep and you do end up sleeping a lot, then you will actually become more tired after you wake up for the rest of the day or the entire weekend. So here, the word actually is used simply for emphasis. actually means really or truly. So I could say, for instance, if somebody asks me, do you do yoga? And I'll say, yes, I've actually been doing it for the past 10 years.
Indeed, and here in the next sentence it says what your body needs is a consistent 8 hours of sleep per night. So if something's consistent, it keeps on going and it is not interrupted or it doesn't change. So of course we like to have consistent friends who are always there for us and they don't let us down from time to time. We want them to always be the same kind of person that we hope we are with them. And yes, indeed, you need a continuous 8 hours of sleep, consistent 8 hours of sleep per night. Although I've heard other people say, no, that's probably too much. Maybe 6 or 7 hours is enough as well.
Yes, I believe younger people need more sleep. So my daughter, for instance, can sleep 9-10 hours a night without any problems.
Wow.
But I don't think I would be able to do that at all. So yes, it's better to do things consistently, to be consistent when it comes to your health, when it comes to body matters. Another example of the usage of this word would be, I could say, he has been a consistent supporter of the charity by donating money every year. So his support has been consistent because he has donated money every year.
Indeed. So instead of binging on sleep once a week, adjust your schedule to ensure you get enough rest on a regular basis. So here we've got the word binging, and that's from the verb to binge, which means you do a lot of something at the same time. Binge eating is a term we hear quite often. Sometimes if we're trying to lose weight, we cut back on our meals, but then we just can't help ourselves, and we binge eat chocolate, for example. We eat 20 pounds of chocolate because, we're just starving, and we just want to have it so bad, even though we know it's the wrong thing to do, but we still binge. People also binge when they watch TV shows. I think there are certain TV shows from Britain and the US that people get obsessed with, and they do binge watching. They just watch one episode after another for several hours.
Yeah, the phrase binging on Netflix has become very common these days. That's something that a lot of people do on weekends. Also, instead of going out and going into nature, maybe because the weather isn't good, they might stay in the whole weekend binging on Netflix, which means binging on episodes of series that are shown on Netflix. So in general, you would use the verb to binge with things that you like to do. You wouldn't binge on studying or binge on working because those usually are not pleasurable activities.
Right, so don't binge on sleep once a week on Saturday morning or Sunday morning. Adjust your schedule to ensure you get enough rest on a regular basis. You could also say ensure you get enough rest regularly. In other words, try to get those 8 hours of sleep every night. Don't say yes to working overtime so much. Try to get home, put that phone down, and catch some Z's. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. That's one myth we have dispelled. Now let's talk about another myth about gum, chewing gum. Have you heard this myth? It takes 7 years to digest. Let's find out what this is all about.
Gum takes 7 years to digest. Actually, our bodies don't digest gum at all, as we cannot produce the chemicals capable of breaking it down. As a result, gum simply passes through our system, whole, at the same rate as other indigestible matter, such as raw vegetable fibers and seeds.
So the next piece of misinformation is gum takes 7 years to digest. So this piece of misinformation has to do with digestion and gum. Gum is the thing that we chew but don't swallow. And the myth states that if you did swallow gum, it would take 7 years to digest that piece of gum. To digest means that your stomach is turning the food that you eat into substances that your body needs, into nutrients, basically. And since gum isn't supposed to be swallowed, it isn't supposed to enter your stomach, then your stomach will have a lot of trouble digesting it.
Yes, I've heard that chewing gum is actually good for your teeth. If you chew sugar-free gum, it helps clean your teeth. That's what I've heard from some dentists. But a lot of people say that if you swallow the gum, that is bad. It will stay in your stomach for 7 years, and you won't be able to digest the gum in 7 years' time. Okay, that's a myth. We'll find out what this is all about. It says, actually, our bodies don't digest gum at all, as we cannot produce the chemicals capable of breaking it down. I guess it's like eating a piece of metal, for example. The body can't digest that piece of metal, so usually it comes out in our poop. Okay, so in this particular case, the body, the stomach, does not have the chemicals that can break down the gum. It just stays in its original form until the body passes it, probably just a couple of hours later.
Yep. So to break down means to turn something into smaller pieces or to melt it. And in this case, we don't produce the chemicals that are needed to break down, to turn the piece of gum into smaller pieces or to melt it. So as a result, gum simply passes through our system whole at the same rate as other indigestible matter, such as raw vegetable fibers and seeds. So it's not true that the gum, since it can't be digested, it's just going to stay in our system for 7 years and all of a sudden the 8th year it'll magically disappear. What happens is that the piece of gum will pass through our system when we go to the bathroom. It'll come out of our bodies whole, and it will come out at the same rate as other matters that cannot be digested, such as raw vegetable fibers and seeds. So fiber refers to the parts of fruit, vegetables, and grains that your body cannot digest because they are rough and they are hard. So usually when you eat those things, they will come right out of your body, and they're actually very healthy because they help with digestion and they help with elimination, which means pooping.
And remember, fiber is 纤维 in Chinese, but here we're using it as a countable noun. If you want to talk about those tiny individual fibers, then yes, it's countable. But we often use this word as a non-count noun in general when we talk about getting enough fiber in our diets because there are so many millions of those little fibers. We'll just refer to it as a non-count noun when we're talking about it in terms of our diet. I have a high fiber diet, for example. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Let's listen to Hanny, our beloved Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。人体是个奇妙的东西，你对它越了解，它就变得越有趣。随着更深入的了解，也就意识到跟身体有关的错误资讯是如此的多。好，文中是用 With this deeper knowledge also comes the realization... 来表达。好，这其实是一个倒装句哦，它是用来强调 with this deeper knowledge， 而这个部分其实可以还原成 the realization... also comes with this deeper knowledge。 好，这边我们就来学习 come with 加名词的用法。 come with 加名词可以表达说具有什么，附有某个东西，伴随着什么东西。那么倒装句型 with 名词 comes 名词则是表达有什么就有什么。同学们如果有看过蜘蛛人的电影，对这句话应该很熟悉。 With great power comes great responsibility。 能力越强，责任越大。也就是说，有强大的能力就会有巨大的责任。如果我们不要倒装，试着把它还原，你可以把它写作 Great responsibility comes with great power。 巨大责任伴随着强大能力而来。好，接着我们看到课文第一部分的最后一句啊，它用到单字 inspection， 这个字是来自动词 inspect。 我们来学它的字首字根。好，字根 spect S-P-E-C-T 或者是拼作 S-P-E-C， 这部分有看、看见或是查看的意思。那么在 inspect 这个字当中，它的字首 I-N 表示往内， spect 表示看，合在一起往内往里面仔细的看，这样应该可以联想到 inspect 它有检视、检验、审查的意思。通常是指说为了找出是不是有错误啊或是问题而去做仔细检查。 好，我们顺便补充几个有相同字根的单字。第一个是 prospect， 它的字首 pro 表示向前，那么 spect 这个字根有看、看见或查看的意思。当我们向前看，看向远方，会看到景色嘛，所以 prospect 它有景象、景色或是视野的意思，尤其是指说你从高处所看到的景色。另外，当我们说向前看，像中文里面向前看也有像展望未来的那种语义嘛，所以这个 prospect 它其实也带有抽象含义，可以用来表达前途、前景、展望或者是成功的机会。第二个补充的是 suspect。suspect 它的字首 sus 表示在下方，那这个字是来自 sub 这个字首，只是因为后面碰到 s 开头，所以才会拼出 sus。 好，所以我们刚刚说这个字首是表示在下方，然后字根 spect 表示观看，那在底下偷偷观察就表示不信任咯，所以 suspect这个字呢，当动词表示怀疑、猜疑，那么当名词可以指嫌疑犯的意思，那当名词我们会念作 suspect。 好，再看第三个补充的是 expect， 就是我们说期待、期望那个字，它是由字首 ex 表示向外，然后和 spect 这个字根组成。那因为 ex 这个尾音 x 和 spect 的 s 发音产生的同化现象，所以我们把 spect 摆在 ex 后面呢，只剩下了 pect 的部分。同学们可以试着想象电影小说里面的情节，女主角从窗户向外看，心中充满了期待，期待另一半的到来，这样去想象说向外看，去联想 expect 它有期待、期望、预期的意思咯。好，那么以上是今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天单字吧。
Fascinating. Anna has introduced me to a number of fascinating books. Inspection. Close inspection of the house revealed water damage in the basement. Consistent. Lance receives a consistent amount of work from his biggest client. Digest. Some people are unable to digest the sugar found in milk and other dairy products. Fiber. Irene's doctor recommended that she get more fiber in her diet.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoyed reading along with us. I am Roger.
I'm Helen.
See you next time.